If you desire to walk in alignment with your purpose, to live a life of joy, abundance, and fulfillment, you've come to the right place. This is Sarah Locke, and welcome to Purpose Unlocked. Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about investing and more specifically a recent investment decision that I've been faced with, and that is, do I sell my house? So I have a duplex in Columbus that I keep as an investment property and it's rented out, and I really love my tenants. So my number one thing is when I sell it, I want to make sure that I'm leaving them in a good position. I don't want to have to kick them out and, at the end of their lease, obviously. But I was just trying to figure out, do I sell it to an investor or do I put it on the market with the realtor that I've been using up there? Now, the reason that I was faced with this decision is because I had an investor call me and they made me an offer for the house, and I was thinking about taking it. But upon further analysis, I do know that I can get more for it if I put it on the market. However, my realtor had told me that he would prefer one of the sides be vacant when we list it, because then that will allow more people to be able to buy it. The reason for that being is because if they were doing a house hack, which is what I did, where you live in one side and rent out the other, you are eligible for an FHA loan. Now, if both sides are rented and you can't move into it, then you would have to be buying it as an investment property because you wouldn't be physically living at that address. And if you're buying it as an investment property, you have to put a lot more money down. You only qualify for certain loans. So that's why my realtor would want one side vacant. All of that being said, the reason that I've been wanting to sell is because I want to reinvest it. And if you've been watching me for any period of time, you know that I'm pretty obsessed with Bitcoin, and that is where I would be transitioning that investment to.
What prompted that decision, or what makes you believe that crypto is a better asset to invest in than real estate? Because, for so many years, everybody has been touting real estate.
That's a good question. And I think it comes down to the fact that I see a lot more of an upside to Bitcoin. I think that over the next 5 to 10 years, I'm going to get a much larger return on my investment in Bitcoin than I would in the real estate market. I was hoping to wait to sell my property until the Intel plant was built, because my property is not too far from where they're building the Intel plant in Ohio. So I was hoping to wait until that was done, but now that's not going to be done. It was supposed to be done in 2026, I think, and now it's not going to be done until 2030, 2031, and I definitely don't want to wait that long to sell and reinvest that capital. So that's why I want to do it sooner than later, because like I said, I think I'm going to get a much higher return on investment with Bitcoin than I would with the house. Additionally, having a house and having an investment property is just stressful in general. Even though I have property management, that house has just cost me so much money because it's an old house, right? It was a flip. Things go wrong, things break, things are old, and I just don't want the headache or the looming stress. I feel like there's always something in the back of my mind, when's the next thing gonna break? When's the next shoe gonna drop? And I just want it to not be my problem anymore.
Now, for someone who doesn't necessarily have real estate investments in real estate, however, is invested in the stock market, would there be a higher return in crypto? And should they be getting out of the stock market and going into crypto? For me personally, I've been contemplating that decision. However, I'm also know that time in the market beats timing the market. I think I should just keep that where it's at now. But then any additional capital I have coming in from here on is going to be invested in crypto.
Well, I will start by saying I don't give financial advice and I don't tell other people how to invest. I just share how I'm investing. But I would say, like, for you personally, like, does it make sense to stay in stocks or switch to Bitcoin? And again, you keep saying crypto. I'm specifically saying Bitcoin. I'm not saying crypto in general. I'm saying Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. Again, that's for me. I think that there's certain stocks that's the other thing. It's so hard to pick the right stocks. Like, you have to do a ton of research. And like I said, I got out of Tesla when it was high after Trump, like, basically appointed Elon the president. And that's gonna fire some people up. But yeah, when Elon was given this huge, head of Doge and all that stuff in the government, and it was this whole big thing, and then Tesla stock went up, I was like, all right, I'm getting out while the getting's good. And sure enough, not too long after I got out, all this stuff and all of it hit the fan and the stock plummeted, and it's come back a little bit. So I do think that Tesla is a good investment long term. I think that, especially with Elon getting out of government back into his business, I think he's really smart. I think he is going to do amazing things with SpaceX. I think that Tesla only has upsides in the future, especially because they're going to be self-driving. They're going to be creating these self-driving trucks. And I think it's going to really revolutionize the car industry as we know it. So anyway, that's what I think. I still think Tesla's a good pick. It's just not what I want to be putting my money in right now. But there's a lot of other stocks that are very futuristic. You have to think of companies that are using AI. And again, you just have to do a ton of your own research. For me, I don't want to do all of that research in a million different stocks. So for me, I think that the largest return on my investment is going to be in Bitcoin. For me personally.
Is there anything else you did want to say about investing for the future, real estate versus Bitcoin?
I do hope that in the future, real estate becomes less of an asset class that's used to hold wealth and something that people use to just live in. And the reason that I say that is because if that were the case, if we weren't using real estate as a way to hold our wealth, and the reason that people do that, the reason that people with the capital available buy assets is because if your money sits in the bank, it's going to be worthless because of inflation and because the government keeps printing money, and that's both sides of the coin. Both sides print. Mm-hmm. So whether you're Democrat or Republican, they're printing like crazy. And in order for the US to continue to function as it does, that's what they are going to keep doing. And I think we're running toward a cliff. I think we're running toward the collapse of the dollar. And that is why I want my money in crypto or in Bitcoin. But I do think that if we stop using real estate as a way to store our wealth and start using Bitcoin as a way to store our wealth, it will also make housing way more affordable for people, because you're not going to have all of these investors buying up properties. They're going to be storing their wealth in Bitcoin. instead of storing their wealth in real estate, which will make real estate way more affordable for the average person who just wants to buy a house to have their family live in. And I think that that's just going to be a way better structure for people. And again, this is my utopia, right? Like, I don't know what that transition looks like, but I think that that is a ugly one and a scary one, because you also have people where they're near retirement and their house is their nest egg, and they're going to sell their house to move into something way smaller and affordable. You're going to have people like me who aren't these crazy real estate Mongols, but we have an investment property, like a single investment property. And, you know, if for some reason the price of those investments plummet, that's going to leave a lot of people in really bad positions. It's going to leave a lot of, and it will obviously hurt the big time investors even more. Like, if all of housing suddenly becomes affordable, people that made their money in real estate are going to have a harder time with that, because they're going to have trouble offloading their account if they're barely able to sell it what they bought it for.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what that transition looks like. I don't think there's any world in where it's a good one or a smooth transition by any means. I don't want to speculate about what it's going to look like, but I don't think it'll be good.
I feel like it's generation to generation, because then, so you're talking about like our parents' generation, and you're talking about well, I'm like somewhat part of your generation, but like the end half, where, you know, I haven't even bought my first house yet. And so, like, a lot of my money, because I don't want it to be in the bank, has to be in either the stock market or crypto, because it's not enough to get into real estate yet.
Yeah, which is fair.
So I feel like that's where a lot of the people my age and younger are at, though, currently. So I feel like, you know, Bitcoin is obviously the best one, but many people do a lot of the other ones because they believe that that's the only way that they're going to be able to store and maintain and grow their wealth, because they can't get into real estate.
That's fair. And I think you bring up a good point in that perhaps the transition might not be as painful, or it might be really painful for the boomer generation. Because the way I see it is, if what you're saying is true, right? Which we know that the younger generation, like millennials and younger, are having a hard time purchasing a home. And if the transition is somewhat natural, where those people are, instead of putting their savings into a house, they're putting their savings in investments like the S&P 500 or in Bitcoin, then it might actually be a smoother transition, because what's going to happen is the boomers are going to need to sell their homes. Like, they're either going to be downsizing or, unfortunately, passing away. That's just how life works. So one of those two things is going to happen, and then there's going to be a lot more available on the market. And I think that in and of itself has a high likelihood of bringing down the prices of real estate.
Yes, because if there's all this inventory and nobody's buying, the prices are going to have to fall in order to try and attract consumers.
Yeah. Eventually the bubble's going to pop again, is essentially what we're both saying. And I personally want to get out before the bubble pops. So even though I think for right now, I don't think I'm going to actually sell my property. I think that I'll probably wait until next spring or summer. My tenants that I really like, I had reached out to them to see, you know, are you planning on staying, or if you're planning on moving out? If they were planning on moving out, I was thinking about putting my property on the market. But because they said that they weren't, that would leave, my only other option would be to, well, not that I don't have the option. I could not renew their lease at the end of their lease, but that doesn't feel right to me. I want everything that I do personally in terms of investing, I want it to be done with integrity, and I want to always treat other people the way that I would want to be treated myself. And I have a relationship with them. I think that they're really great people. So I don't want to non-renew their lease. I think when I do renew their lease, I don't think that it'll be, so this is kind of the compromise that I came to in my head, is instead of renewing them for a 12-month lease, I'll probably renew them for like 8 to 10 months, so that when their lease comes, and I'll give them like the heads up, like, okay, at the end of this lease, I'm going to be putting the house on the market. So they have 8 to 10 months to prepare. So they'll have more than enough time. And yeah, so I think that that's how I'm going to do it, because I would want to put it on the market in like the spring, summertime, because generally you get more people are looking to move around that time because kids aren't in school and all that. So I think that's my plan. And then at that point, then I'll reinvest in Bitcoin. So, but I think that it's not the move for right now, but probably early next year is when I'll do that.
Very good.
So if you have been thinking about investing yourself, we would love to hear about it. What do you think about real estate and crypto? Where do you see the markets going? Do you think that there is a bubble that is going to pop soon? So if you think you have the answers to any of those things, we'd love to hear about it. Please leave us a comment, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for the precious gift of your time. If you found this helpful, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share with someone you love. Until next time, count your blessings, love yourself, and stay fabulous.